In this video, we're going to talk about the difference between fear and desire in motivation. And so, if you have had me for class, watched some of these videos, or worked with me, this comes up pretty frequently. So we talk about, either fear versus desire driving, or sometimes we talk about it as a playing to win versus playing not to lose kind of mindset. So to explain this, I want to use this chart. This is one of my favorite ways to kind of understand motivation, and as we look at this, keep in mind that we don't fully understand motivation in all of its different manifestations. So we have lots of different models to understand it. Okay. So you may have seen another chart, another model, another concept of motivation, and that's okay. Those are all different. This one just happens to be one of my favorites to use, especially when we're talking about desire versus fear. So, you've probably heard of intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. Intrinsic motivation is when we do things kind of for the warm, fuzzy feelings that it gives us. And extrinsic motivation is when we do it for the external um, reasons, like a reward. So, we're doing it for the candy, the gold stars, the trophies, the scholarships. Those external kind of carrots dangling are what are driving us to do a certain thing. Intrinsic motivation is kind of just the way it makes us feel. Okay. And so we can see that on this chart. When we get into it, like motivation is not that clear cut. Sometimes, so let's say you really enjoy running and you're doing it for the warm, fuzzy feelings. But then when someone kind of acknowledges that you are a runner and that are consistent with it, it gives you those warm, fuzzy feelings, but it's based on that external evaluation and kind of validation as well. And so you can also, like maybe you do enjoy running, but you also really love winning 5Ks. Those are both okay. It doesn't have to be either or. It really is kind of a spectrum of motivation. Okay, so again, it's not binary. It's kind of a spectrum. And so we can kind of see that on here. We also, the added element here that I really like is the positive motivation versus negative motivation. When we're positively motivated, we're going towards something. So there's something we want and there's something that we are trying to get. When we're negatively motivated, we're avoiding something. So that could be, the difference in like trying to get a new job would be positive motivation versus trying not to get fired. That would be negative motivation. A batter stepping up to bat, trying to hit a home run would be positive motivation, and trying to not strike out would be negative motivation. Okay. So when we understand it, when we kind of see those variables put together, we can see here maybe an athlete shows up for practice and they show up late. Well, they then they get punished, right? The coach makes them run laps. That is the next time that they show up for practice, that's a threat. So they're going to show up on time, not because they want to be rewarded. They don't want to be praised by the coach. They want to avoid that threat. They want to avoid that punishment. So that's the piece at the bottom. So when we're striving for something, maybe they show up on time so they get praised. That would be after the reward. Maybe they show up on time so that they don't get punished. That would be the threat piece. And so moving up to this part, we're looking at desire versus fear. And this is the key. This is my favorite. So when fear is driving, we are intrinsically motivated. So it's about our feelings inside, not about necessarily the external like threats or rewards. It's about our feelings inside. So we are negatively motivated um, and we are trying to avoid something that gives us negative feelings. So the example of the batter stepping up and trying to avoid striking out. Obviously, there's an external kind of threat. It impacts the score, it impacts the team, but there's also that fear. I probably don't want to strike out, right? Like it just feels bad, and so fear is driving. And versus the player that steps up and wants to make a home run. And so that would be desire. So it's a positive motivation. They're moving towards something. Again, there's a reward on the bottom for the team, but they're they're desiring to do something good for their team, but also because they like that feeling, right? Like hitting a home run, pretty good feeling. So when we step up to the plate, whatever your plate is, if desire is driving, you're more relaxed. You're after it. You're playing to win. You're looking around. You're seeing everything. You're feeling confident. You're just showing up in a very different way than if you step up and you're afraid and fear's driving. When fear is driving, we're tight, we're maybe a little bit more tunnel vision, we're making poorer decisions, and we're playing not to lose. So, again, same situation, but because desire's driving versus fear driving, that can have us showing up in the performance arena very, very differently.